All right, Nic Maszk, what's up, dude?
Not much. Just hanging out.
Just hanging out, getting your recovery on. So you ran the Seattle Beast almost kind of out of nowhere. I think Vince Pikowski told me you were racing like the week of. I was like, oh shit, because as far from what I understood is that like you were still kind of on the mend, you were still like kind of come back, and then I hit you. I was like, dude, you're running this race. You're like gonna do all three. I was like,
Yeah.
all right.
Spoiler, didn't happen. But yeah, no. So I bought the race ahead of time, like most people do, when I was healthy, and then I had this knee injury come up like 6 months ago. I think like May, April, and I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to do any races. And I had been doing physical therapy for like 2 months, and just like right at the end of it, I was like, I'm feeling pretty good with pain tolerance. Maybe I'll go, because I already signed up. And then Vince asked me about it. He's like, hey, are you doing this race? And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to do it. And then I got a little ahead of myself, like trying to do all three for sure. But it's my favorite venue. So like not doing Seattle when it's the second closest Spartan race to where I'm at. And it being like my favorite one to go to. It's like, if I can do it, even if I probably shouldn't, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Where Portland, you did have to miss a couple weeks ago, which would probably be the closest one, right?
Yeah. Portland, I originally had on my book, and then I looked at it and I looked at how I felt, and I was like, the racer in me wants to do it. But I just couldn't. Like there was no way when Portland happened that I was in the condition to be doing it. I probably would have just got re-injured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's just a sprint,
Yeah, and that's not my favorite distance anyway. So
what was before we get into the race itself, what was the knee injury you had going on? Because we were talking throughout it, but it seemed like it was kind of unclear, but it was like the one thing that was constant was pain. So you knew that you had to recover at some point. So what do you think it was?
Honestly, I don't know what it is still, and neither does my physical therapist or anyone I've seen with it. Basically, I just know that it's like really bad. It's like really bad, like pain, sharp pain right underneath the kneecap. So anytime I try to get any power out of the leg, so like jumping, lunges, squats, like any loading onto that knee was like 8 out of 10, fire immediately. Don't do that. Where you kind of just like, oh, I can't make that movement. And the weird thing was, it would also hurt if I kept it bent too long. So like if I was in a car for more than 2 hours, I get just like super dull aches that just like felt like growing pains almost, which I'm not growing, unfortunately, anymore. But yeah, so it just kind of hurt in different ways. And at first it wasn't too bad. And then I really messed it up when I was coaching a high school track team in the spring, because I was hanging out around the high jump, and I jumped off it a little too hard, and I felt something that time. And it was like, that was really bad.
Or you're just getting excited, you're like counting out your steps, like going through that turn, trying to make that pivot.
Just showing them an approach for steps, and like how to kind of approach the high jump, nothing crazy. And I just popped up to kind of like pop up the bar, and that was
too much.
That was too much.
I went through the USATF level 1 years ago. Do you have that?
USATF level 1? No, like coaching?
Yeah, coaching cert.
I was certified in something, but I don't think it was that.
The certifications are just ridiculous, especially for like track and field and running. I'm just like, and like what I've gone through, like they don't really teach you anything. And that's what the USATF was just like this general, like talking about everything, but like a real small amount. And like talking about the high jump, it'd be cool to like get into and learn the high jump a lot, to get like the nuts and bolts of it. It's like really technical.
Every single event in track was like 16 to 20 of them, depending on if you're indoor or outdoor. But like every single one of those is like a 10-year learning curve.
Yeah.
Like javelin is so technical. And then it's so different than high jump, which is so technical. So I really feel like in that sport, you have to have just multiple coaches. You can't have one person who knows everything about all of them. It's like people don't live long enough.
You will just be a bad.
They're so amazing. It's like they know so much.
Who are amazing?
The athletes.
Oh yeah, right. Like just to learn those technical skills of javelin and shot put, where it's like essentially they're like weightlifters, right? Like they're doing clean and jerk and snatch and stuff like that, only like moving a little bit more.
Weightlifters that are great jumpers and they still do the distance events. Like, I mean, a decathlete does a 1500.
No, yeah, I meant like I was talking about just that they could learn the technical part and then still have capacity to improve their speed and their endurance. Pretty crazy. Yeah, it is pretty crazy.
I wasn't a decathlete.
I wasn't either. I wish I would have. Like looking back now, it's like, man, I bet I could have done okay. I wouldn't have done well in the strength stuff, and the men have to learn pole vault, right?
Yeah, it's terrifying. Some people really like that.
I don't think it should be a track and field event.
You don't think so?
It's so different. Like if you can't take they're so specialized that they can't contribute on the track team like anywhere else. They're gymnasts to me.
Oh, the best though are like really good sprinters because the speed you need to hit, plant the pole is enormous. So I think a lot of really good pole vaulters can still sprint. It is specialized though. Like usually when you got a pole vaulter in your team, that's their
thing. It's so technical.
It's not like a sprinter who can be a great long jumper and also maybe like diversify in other things. But yeah, it's definitely the weirdest one, right?
It's the one thing that doesn't belong.
Yeah, it's pretty odd. I mean, we could say the same thing about steeplechase, right? Like people could make fun of us.
That's pretty true.
Yeah, it's like not only is distance the kids on the team who are like, well, race me something really long. It's like the kids in the distance squad who are like, we'll put water in the hurdles in the way.
Yeah, it's like let's just keep making events until we find one that everybody can be be good at. So
yeah, there we go. That's what the steeplechase feels like. So I can't really talk.
Which is kind of what OCR is. So full circle. So you went into this event. We weren't sure if this was something you weren't like. I had no idea, and like it sounded like it was kind of a last second thing to kind of jump into. But you won. You won the race, and this was a race that you won in 2019. 19, yeah, I believe as well. It was last time I had the race at that venue for the Beast distance. So in 2019, there was a good field. There was still like Aaron Newell and Josh Fry who were on the podium with you. But the way that you kind of talk about that race is that you kind of went out, things felt comfortable, and then you find yourself by yourself after a long running stretch. And so with this course, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say like that race, they're very different. Like this year in 2019 is so different. I like to think that in 2019, I got away with being nobody, like no one knew anything about me. I was just, the dumbass who took off and was going to come back later. And partially I probably was, and I just got really lucky that I felt good that day. But like, it was really nice that no one really worried about me making that gap. Whereas I knew I wasn't going to have that this year. Like, especially because like I've already talked with Vince, like maybe if Vince and I weren't both on Torque, but because we already knew about each other, I was like, I can't just be a nobody,
And like Josh Fry was going to be at the race. At least.
Yeah. Josh already knows about me too.
He knows who you are. And
like I think I've almost all my races I've raced with Josh. So yeah. So of course, yeah. Once someone knows you're like even slightly good at just running on flats, I don't think they let you go as hard again. So
you're at least a threat then. Like if you like that one race and then maybe Josh looks into you a little bit and be like, oh, this guy is actually like, and then you ran OCR stars and ran that 420 or something in the mile solo. 420? Was that what it was?
4, I think.
Oh, 424. I thought it was 420. Yeah, 424.
Yeah, I ran a 420. It was a long, long time ago.
Yeah. But last year, but this was your first real obstacle course race in
2 years almost.
2 years or so.
Like I did a Sacramento sprint and super 2 Novembers ago. But like, yeah, I'm coming up on 2 years.
So this race, was the course the same as?
Almost identical.
Yeah.
Literally, they laid it out to a T, almost identical. I want to say the first 8 miles, the course itself, path-wise, was the same. The obstacle order was different.
Okay.
So they changed up the obstacle order. I think it was a little bit easier up front and harder in the back. There was like nothing the first 4 miles, it felt like. And so that really allowed us to set the pace quick because it was like 3 walls, maybe.
And not really even hills or anything.
No, it was pretty flat. Like there was an intermittent like 10-foot hill, but you had so much speed going into it that, so, like, okay. It wasn't like hefty trail work. It wasn't technical terrain. We didn't have the creek yet. So it really felt just like like a cross-country 8K to start it off.
And so that would typically be to your advantage. But in this race in particular, this race is pretty stacked, honestly.
Yeah. There was a lot of good people there.
A lot of good dudes. Like, I would say this would be to your advantage, but Vince Pikowski, who we're going to talk to later, and he's in great shape, and he's new to the sport too. So, so a course like this is up his wheelhouse. He's like, okay, great. I don't have too much to worry about through the first. How long was this flat section?
Long, like 3.5.
Okay, so so for the first 5K or so, there's not a ton to worry about for someone who's inexperienced and a fast runner, and you had Chris Bob Brown, who's also a very fast runner as well, right? And has more experience, but is like a good runner. So between the three of you, like the running pedigree is there. And then you have OCR athletes like Josh Fry, who we mentioned, Matt Rock, who is no joke, Taylor Turney, who's really solid. Like a bunch of dudes came out for this race. It's probably one of the most competitive non-US National Series races that we've had this year.
Especially for the Northwest. Like the Northwest does not have a lot of OCR, like star power. I don't know what you'd call it. Like there aren't a lot of like well-known racers up here. So seeing that many recognizable faces, because I don't know a lot of people in sport. I see what I see on Instagram and like what OCR media puts out and, like the big names. But I literally parked in the venue and I opened up my RV and I lock eyes with Chris Brown. And I was like, damn, I know who that is. And I've never even spoken to him. So just like, seeing that many people who I knew were going to be strong runners, I was like, maybe this is going to be really hard.
And so that was like 7 guys deep. And even after that, it was John Howell and John Howard. So like, if you have a not great race, which I don't think we need to talk about the super too much, but the super, you had a not great race and you were like in 7th, right? Because there's enough people there that you can't just.
Yeah, it was like everything that should have happened to me in the Beast happened to me in the Super. Like I could say like, oh yeah, I had a really terrible race and I got really unlucky. Like I missed the spear again and I slipped off the beater and like it was really bad conditions. But like 1, everyone has those conditions. And 2, I walked into this thing knowing I was in not good shape. I did not prepare for any obstacles and haven't been practicing them for 2 years. Like, so every bad thing that should have happened did happen in the Super. So honestly, it's like, it was a bad day, but it was a very like expected, like I should have seen it coming.
Well, it's like you made a deal that way. It's like, how about I have 1 good race and 1 terrible race? And like, that was part of the deal. I would
be lying if I didn't say like, I cared about the Beast more. Like the first race is definitely the one because like, I love the distance, my favorite distance in Spartan. And it's the first one. So of course you're going to hammer that one the hardest. I would have loved to do really good in the Super 2. And I think I took it out to be in a place where I could, but like, like reality set in, the law of averages set in. Like, so I did burpees with the slugs and, I had an all right time.
So for the Beast, though, the race, as you said, is flat. Not a ton of obstacles happen in the first so often or whatever. But then, so how did things kind of play out? Was it a group of you guys? I mentioned how well as deep of a field it was, or were you pretty assertive up front? Like, how did the race dynamics play out in like that early part?
Yeah, so my plan with the early part, because I knew the venue and neither Vince or Chris, I don't think, had ran that style of the course. So I knew going in, I was like, okay, this is where I could capitalize. Like if they don't go out hard, I could really take it out, see where I'm at, like, just give it a good shot. And so I thought that was going to be, my part. And then maybe I get reeled back in, but I was like reverse wrong. And right out the gun, Chris and Vince, like, just sent it. They were gone. And so I was put in a place where I was like, okay, they're going faster than I'm comfortable with. I am not in a position I like, but if I let them go, like, that's it. I'm not going to see him again. Right. I'm going to get stuck back here with Josh. And I know Josh can eat me up on obstacles like any day of the week right now. Like he's definitely more fluid and I knew it. So I was like, I can put myself with a dude who I know is better at most of the things, or I can just like be really uncomfortable and hope it settles down. Like I was guessing that one of them wanted to just blow up the field and have it be like an easier podium kind of deal.
Mm.
And so, yeah, those first like 3-4 miles was just hanging on. Like they were running together. I was like probably 10 meters back. And I was just like trying to remain contact the whole time.
Cause I know Chris did that in Asheville at the US National Series, took it out and they were sub 5 after like 3 walls. But
Okay.
he also came back. He also had just done the CCC, which is what, 100K.
So Chris had done 2 weeks ago. He did, like a 61 miler.
Yeah. So
he was probably destroyed. Like there's no way his body recovered entirely, right?
And no. But he still probably had that in mind. It's like, well, let me see if I can get away. Probably
definitely.
So he was just trying to do that. And then, that's when Vince was looking at it the same way. He's like, probably the same way that you were. It's like, this is where I need to capitalize. Like if I'm going to do well in this, it's going to be because I'm fast. So you hung on. And when did that kind of change then, where you were able to kind of catch up a little bit? Did that naturally happen, or did you have to decide to catch back up?
I had to work for it for sure. Like I knew I could feel them relaxing a bit. Like I could see it in their form, and I was like, okay, they're letting off. They're not like surging out of corners anymore. They were looking back a few times, checking the field. And so at that point in time, I put down probably like a 10-second surge, and I caught back into him. And then we all kind of started talking for a little bit, just like, short comments here and there. And then at some point I popped out in front because I just wanted to like have the feeling. Sometimes it's nicer to just be in the front of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was chilling up there, and I felt decent. Like I felt like I had caught back up with my aerobic fitness wherever it was. And I didn't know we were running as fast as we were at the time. So my brain was like, okay, we're probably doing like 6:30s. We're fine. And it was faster, but like, as long as I didn't know that, I'm good.
Right.
And then like a horse jumped in the race. It was super funny. Like a whole just a group of horses they're like are running at us. And then all of them leave but one. And he hops into the course, or she, I think it was a male horse. I don't know. And we were following it for probably a good, like 200 meters, 300 meters. And it's just right in front of us, looking back, having a good time, running in the race.
What?
So, like the horse just jumps in. And then after the horse leaves, I noticed there was like a small little gap, and I just pressed a little, and Vince went with me. And we went into this like wooded section. It started to become like trails with rolling hills. And that's where I felt like there was a little bit of separation from Chris. And I was like, we got to go. And I told Vince, I was like, we got to leave this guy now if we can, because he's a monster. Like he's a really strong runner. He's really fluid through the obstacles. Like I know who this guy is, and I've never raced him. Like, I don't want to be near him at the end of the run.
He was second the last at US National Series he ran in Asheville. He finished second overall.
Yeah.
He beat Atkins, he beat Kempson. Yeah, he beat Batris. He beat a bunch of guys.
And I didn't know if Vince knew he was. And so I was like, we're teammates, dude. Let's work together right now. Like we can figure out our problems 6 miles later if we're still together. But like priority one is get away from this dude. And so we made a really hard push to the woods. And I think that's where we made our first separation.
Nice.
Sure.
Where's that? Was that about halfway? I got the map up here. I'm like,
I would say that was at mile 4. We're like running through the backwoods. It's a little bit more uphill. There's a few times where I use my hands to like climb up. And then it's got pretty steep, like short descents, and then it will whip you 90 degrees. It kind of like how 2019. I think 2019's Seattle Super for the National Series was.
Where it started.
Where the start of that race is.
Okay.
So it's like, thick woods, hilly, blackberry bushes, and you're kind of just scrambling for like a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's pretty technical.
We kind of punched it there, and then I started really flying on the downs because I was like, oh, this doesn't take as much energy. So sacrificed the body a little bit and got out of the clearing ahead just a little bit.
Was Vince able to come respond to the downs at all?
I think we were both a little cautious at first, and then he kind of stayed that way through there. I don't know, because I got out in front, and then when I felt the separation from Vince, I was like, I got to go. Like I got to leave him too. I got to leave everybody because I didn't know when I was going to hit the wall. And I'd rather hit it when someone's a minute behind me than like right when they're breathing down my neck on the bucket or the sandbag. Like those are places I know I'm going to get got because I'm, 145 pounds. I'm not a big guy. So the carries I know are where people can eat me up. And I like to have a huge gap.
And it is so visual, especially in that part of the course where it turns so often that if you can separate and get out of people's line of sight, it's like it's a different race then.
You're gone, and they have no idea if you're a minute ahead or 10 seconds ahead.
Right.
And as soon as I stop hearing breathing, that's when I start pushing. And so a lot of the really gradual uphills, I was just like pressing them and then letting my body kind of relax and fly down the downs. And it was the huge energy expenditure on the beginning of that race on those ups, because it was like, if no one else is going to do it here, this is a chance to kind of separate.
Yeah, that's interesting. 'Cause that's how like the way you're speaking, it resonates with me. Like how I like to race. It's not like that I'd rather be hunted, but I feel like I push harder when I have the lead. Like now is the time I need to really step on the gas and go, as opposed to like trying to run somebody down. I get more energy when I'm like dropping people.
Yeah. And it's weird because I love chasing too. Like I like having a person that I'm breathing down their neck and I know I feel good. Like hunting is fun too, but in Spartan it's hard because there's these things in the way. If it were an open race, I would like to chase. But when I know there's these barriers that are going to come up and I'm going to probably struggle more than most people, even if I'm fit for them, which I didn't feel like I was that day, I like to have the room because it's like, if you can make a big enough gap, you kind of get it right then and there, You haven't won, but you have an opportunity to like kind of steal the win earlier.
I agree. I agree. So you kind of put yourself in that position again. So before the halfway point. And then are you pretty much just putting the pedal down as far as like just waiting for it to catch up to you? Or are you like, okay, I'm okay. And at this point, you're out of the hills out
of the hills. We did it was like barbed wire crawl into like bucket carry into barbed wire into rolling mud. And then slip wall. And when I got through all of those, I was pretty tanked. Like I could feel how tired I was, but my strategy in the Beast, which I probably wouldn't recommend for people who are like wanting to win these things and do well, was after each obstacle, I didn't punch it. I let my whole breathing reset. And I kept trying to think in my head, flow state, breathing, lower my heart rate, do not get caught up in trying to go the whole time, because I won't be able to. So out of every obstacle, I took a good 5 to 10 second, just really slow, catch up my breathing, kind of get back into my cadence, and then I'd press it again. So I lost a lot of time, I think, doing that. But then when I hit those open 800-meter flats, they felt so much better. So going into halfway, I felt pretty good. I felt like if I hit the spear at halfway, I had the race won.
And I like that, because from a spectator's perspective, if I saw that happen, I'm like, oh, that person is struggling. Like they're coming off the obstacles and it's like taking their time to get back into it. But that was a deliberate choice. It wasn't like a forced.
No, and it's been forced.
Yeah.
Before. After the bucket, I'm forced. It's not like. and I've talked with racers about it. Ian Darrell, or I think that's how you say his last name, out of California, told me you want to get really good at these things, you have to have perfect transitions in and out. And I did not have perfect transitions out, but it's you have to make a sacrifice somewhere in these. You can't be perfect on the obstacles, on the run, on everything, and just be the best at all of it. So,
especially when it's your first race in 2 years, coming up.
Yeah, and again, that was the nice thing, was the whole time I was running, it was at the end of the day, not a lot of expectation. I want to win, and of course, no matter how bad I feel, I want to push it through the whole thing. But I didn't have the stress of I should win this,
right?
Especially when I saw the field, I was if I make podium, that's really good, even when I'm ready for this. So being in front halfway, I was okay, nerves are gone, minus for the spear, because I just hate that obstacle.
So that was right in the middle of this, which I appreciate. And I don't like what they've been doing with putting the spear at the end of these races. It's this whole dramatic race happens and then someone misses and then it's oh, okay, well, never mind.
The spear in the beginning and the end is a a farce. Like why? But that in itself is saying something when you have an entire race dictated on fitness and how good you are at being a multifaceted athlete for all these strength and speed things. And then they just throw in this like
accuracy piece.
Yes, it's a skill and accuracy. I understand that like it ties back in with like actual Spartan culture. And yes, it is a skill. But the impact the spear has on the race is bigger than any obstacle.
It's disproportionate. Yeah.
Period. Like, yeah. And like, if you miss even by a hair, like on the super, when I missed it, I was like maybe 3 inches below it, and it doesn't matter. It's the same thing as being, 3 inches onto it. It's just, I missed it and it's unlucky. And
that's an interesting point. Like how it is like disproportionately weighted for something that is the only piece. Like, it's not like there's like 5 things that are like that, like a carry, right? There's like 3 or 4 carries in a race.
Yeah.
And so like, they're all kind of weighted out the same. It's just this one thing that is like worse for you to miss than most things. What do you think would be a better option?
There's 2 that I've come up with. I think about this.
All right.
I hate the spear. One is the penalty loop, and they've done it in the past. They've given a penalty loop for it. Okay, you miss it, sucks. You go do a 200 meter, 100 meter penalty loop. You lose time, but you are not thrashed from the burpees. And I get that the burpees are the punishment for the miss, but it'd be one thing if you had to do the workload of 30 burpees. That's already tiring, and it destroys the athlete for the rest of the race, unless you're really, really fit. But it's stagnating. Standing in one spot for a minute to a minute and a half is like, it's so damaging. Because now if you do that and you have 6 miles left in your race, great. Every mile you run has to be 10 to 20 seconds faster per mile. That's not doable.
Yeah. So it's like the time that it takes to actually do them and the energy that you expend to do them. It's like, I think it's 3 minutes,
So pick one. Yeah. So pick one, like either have to do this really difficult task that allows you to keep moving, or
like a carry.
Yeah. Or like, look at it like this. They have penalty loops, but you stay in the same spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make it where you have, if you hit it, you go down the course. If you miss it, you go down this path right next to the course, and it has obstacles in it, or it has a carry in it, or it had like, you're still making progress on the course, but it's harder.
Interesting. So you get to buy. Okay. So it's more like if you hit the spear, it's like a positive thing as opposed to avoiding a negative thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or, and I'm more in favor for this one if they keep the spear in, which they will, is if you miss, reel it back in and throw it again, and you're not allowed to leave until you hit it. I understand that clogs the age group. So maybe you can't do it for non-elite races, but for the elite race where the people care about their finishing, and there's only like 100 people max in these heats, you're not going to have that many misses. It's just not going to happen.
And this is I like this because this is kind of along the lines of what the tire flip does, right? Like you can have multiple chances to do it, and eventually it's like, okay, you're better off doing burpees or taking the penalty. So it's like, if you're just doing terrible at the spear and like you miss it 5 times in a row, it's like, okay, now you have the choice to take burpees or miss it 5 more times. And like, there's like a long time. I think that's fair.
The spear takes a while to reel in. Like after you miss and go, ugh, like that's going to be another 20 seconds to redo everything.
Yeah.
And if you rush it, then you're punishing yourself. So like, yeah. And then a missed spear is a 20-second, disadvantage. It's not
3 minutes.
3 minutes. And like other obstacles, I think the burpees are justified because, like you should probably be able to do some of them, like walls and like the bucket's non-negotiable. You have to do it. But the spear is like, you can be the greatest athlete in Spartan, and if you miss it, that's it. Didn't that happen to like Woods in the World Championships?
Yeah, a bunch of athletes missed in Tahoe 2 years, like in 2019. Like Woods got to the top first, missed it, ruined his race. Johnny Luna missed it, ruined his race.
What do you do now? Your hands are like planted in ice for
that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
Good luck. Like, sorry, you trained a whole year for this and you traveled all this way and spent $1,000, but you missed the wooden spear by 2 inches. This isn't supposed to be a spear rant, but like that's my opinion about it.
Well, you've been thinking about it. I'm interested. Woods actually that day, because it was like they made the burpee pit in like a mud pit, like it was wet and muddy, and like so Woods was kind of like going down and not like chest all the way down. So he got huge penalties on his burpees too, which is just another thing.
That's the other frustrating part. So after the Beast, I won, but I don't know that because I have to wait at the venue for a whole hour and constantly check this iPad to make sure some dude who apparently isn't counting my burpees counted my burpees right. You know what I mean? I don't understand that. No one's going to count your burpees for you.
Count them out loud.
They'll tell you if you miss. You know, it's like tax season. It's like, tell us how many you did, and we know, but you have to tell us. And you have to get it right. Like, and so I'm just nervous the whole time because I'm like, I don't know how much I beat Chris by. Like, if I beat him by 29 seconds and I missed one burpee, or they say I did because my chest is a half inch above the ground, like, oh, that's it.
I know. That's a good point about like, yeah, when they count, like those are things you don't know. That happened in the race in Canada. Sean Stevens Whale ended up being the winner. Mick Girello seemed to stay in the course, but didn't go through rolling mud. So they DQ'd him.
Like he didn't go through the obstacle.
He did. He was within the parameters of the course, right? They had like the white flags, but there was space there. So he didn't have to like go all the way in. So he just kind of like went around it.
That is tough because I kind of want to play devil's advocate on that one and say, mark your course better. That's a tactical advantage. Like that.
I agree.
Smart. You know?
I agree. I think that's fair.
Now I got to go look at the rants on that. I mean, I'm happy for Sean because like teammates, but
that's great. Yeah.
that really does suck for that guy.
So you did miss the spear here.
Oh yeah. Both times. Yeah, I'm so good at missing the spear. If you ever want like one of those, I don't know, the coaches they have for Spartan, you want to know how to do the spear wrong? This guy. You
got it. Like have an X over like an Instagram infographic, an X over you and like
a
green circle.
More burpees? I'm your coach.
You can do that. So when you missed, Chris it was Vince and Chris, right? Yeah. Vince came up and Vince missed as well.
Yeah.
And then
relief in the burpee pit for me.
What's that? So were you and him doing burpees at the same time?
Barely. So I got there pretty early and I was like, okay, if I hit this, like huge pressure on them, like this is good. Line up my shot. I go to throw the spear and I miss it like 3 feet left. And I super frustrated because it's like in that point, every time I've missed the spear, I've pretty much missed podium or I've had to crawl back to third. So I go over to the burpee pit and I just start doing really controlled burpees and not trying to get out. And when I got to burpee, I want to say 20, Vince missed. Because around 15, like halfway through, I heard him and I was like, okay, if he hits it, maybe I can climb back and find him later, like 4 miles from now. But he missed and I was like, oh, I don't know where Chris is, but I need to get through these. And so at burpee 20, he comes over, we're doing them together for a little bit. And then I get up from my burpees, put my headband on, I'm torched. They tactically put a hill right after the spear, followed by like a giant
bucket, right? Or a sandbag?
Yeah, they had sandbag right after, and it was really long. It felt like a national series length.
Through the woods? Really I see long. It here.
I don't know. I could say it felt like 400 meters. I don't know if it was. Maybe it wasn't. But anyway, I hear Chris hit the spear, and I'm like, okay, he's going to pass me. Like, I don't want him to beat me, but there is going to be a point in time where he passes me. I do not have the legs anymore. So I go up that hill as hard as I can, without blowing up. I get to the sandbag first. I pack it and I start walking because I'm not going to finish the sandbag in front of him. And I just want to like recoup energy and basically say, okay, reset. When we get to the end of the sandbag, I want to be tied. I want to just like start the race there. And like 4 seconds after that thought, he passes me with the sandbag and he's jogging with it. So I was like, gotta jog. And,
so you didn't stick with it at that point? Because I mean, you could have just been like, that's fine. I'm gonna breathe. But he ends up going past you, and does it just competitive juices take over? And you're like, all right, well, I got it.
It wasn't so much competitive, like because I know that he's such a good athlete. Like I was being competitive, but when he went by me, I was like, okay, if I walk the rest of this, he beats me.
He's gonna kill me.
And so it's like, if I walk, he beats me. If I jog, maybe he beats me. So why not take the lesser of two evils there and jog and see how I feel? And it lit me up. Like it torched me. I dumped the bag off. I was still like pretty far back behind him. But I knew early in the race I beat him on the flats, and I knew he had to be feeling this race from 2 weeks ago. I was like, no human being does 100K and feels good.
No.
So I was like, he's just not showing it. And so like between every obstacle, I just tried to reel him in like 5-10 feet, and finally caught him. I think at the Hercoist.
Okay.
He went for water, which was really smart. I ended up getting dry mouth, and I should have done it with him. But I went straight to the Hercoist. The Spartan official there said we weren't allowed to put our feet on the gate, and we were like, that really sucks, because one, I got there first, and I went to put my foot on it. She's like, no feet on the gate, and I was like, no, you don't understand the rules. Like, I can't put my hips above the gate, and she's like, no feet on the gate, and I was like, that really sucks, because I'm really light. Like,
I need to do this.
So I put my foot on the bottom of the gate, and then she's like, no foot on the gate. And I was like, oh, so I'm just pulling inch by inch. Chris gets there, puts his foot on the gate, puts a big thing down, and I look over at him. I'm like, you can't put your foot on the gate, man. He's like, yeah, you can, thinking I'm the person who doesn't know the rules. And then she starts talking to him, and he's like, no, your hips. And we're all like arguing with each other on the Hercoist about how to do it right. And so we come out of the Hercoist like the same time. And then the craziest part for me of the race happens right after. We hit the helix, and I get there what I feel like is way before Chris. And I get on that thing. I make maybe like 2 shuffles on it, and I hear the bell on another side of it. Chris Brown went through the helix faster than I think any human can go. I don't know what he did. Like, in my brain, the only thing that makes sense logically is he got to 100 miles an hour and long jumped the entire thing and hit it with his hand.
He did. He was learning that technique. Same thing. What did they call that jump when you dip first before you jump and then you go out?
Yeah, bicycle kicking through the air. I have no idea, but he hit it so fast it shocked me. And I was still like halfway to go through it, and I was like, oh.
Those obstacles are right next to each other. Was there any room to run?
A little
in between
bit.
there? So like
100-meter dashes between these.
Yeah. So he just, I mean, you've done helix, what, a couple times, 3 or 4 times?
3 or 4 maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you just slow, or was he just nasty?
I'm probably slow, but he's also probably fast.
Huh.
He said, I asked him after, because I was like really perplexed about it. I was like, how did you do it? And he said that he'd like kind of figured out a way where he could just swing through it really quickly. So I think he just had really fluid, like almost, I don't know. I didn't see it, but like he crushed that part. Like that was so smooth, and it really like set me back. And so he got out way ahead of me on that. And there was a long running stretch after, and I had to use the whole thing to get him back.
So you did eventually catch him going into like Olympus?
So I caught him, let me think. Yeah. So at Olympus, he's, I believe, still ahead. And then at the beater, we hit the beater at the same time. We do the beater at the same time. We finish beater at the same time. And I almost fall off the beater, and it's dry. So grip's not there. And I tell him, I was like, that was really close. Like, I'm that close to falling, man. And after that, we hit the creek section, and that was like my last effort to ditch him. Because I knew from 2 years ago, that section has no obstacles. It's just running through water, running through sand, running through pebbles. And I torched it. Like, all the running juices I had left went into that section. And I just tried to leave. I pretended like it was a flat race from there. And I opened up a pretty big gap, I want to say, at that point.
So do you think it seemed like pretty clear that you were going to be able to outrun him when there was running spaces? So do you think that, like, were you feeling that? Were you like, okay, there's some running, like, yeah, I'm doing better than he is in the running sections? And he was probably feeling that too. He's like, this dude keeps freaking catching me.
He knew. Yeah. I think we both knew. And like, I knew by beater, and before that, even probably like after the spear, I knew I was the best runner on the course. Like, it was apparent, but it didn't matter because like,
it's a Spartan race. Yeah,
right. It's not a race. So it doesn't matter if you're like the fastest guy, but that section's so long. I was like, this is where it has to happen. I'm not going to do it with the monkey bars in the way or the multi-rig.
True. That's not going to be a place where you're going to be able to pick up ground. And after like Twister, there really wasn't too much places where you could really fail besides like multi-rigs? So you're like, all right, if I can get away now, I'm going to win this race.
Every obstacle after I'd say I put like a minute gap on him, went from like looking back and seeing, and every obstacle was done with like very conservative effort, very slowly. I did not want to fall. The multi-rig had a surprise at the end, and it was these 3 ropes that I wasn't
thick ones.
Yeah, they're big.
Yeah, those are new. Those are new in West Virginia.
I grabbed the first one. I was like, easy. And I went to leave the ring or the pole that you transition off of, and I about lost it. Like,
was it slippery?
No,
I just like that rope
gripping like a huge rope. I'm used to like, metal or smaller handles, and maybe that they're vertical.
Yeah.
But I finally got onto it, and I had to double hand it. And then I had to use my body, get to the next one, struggle, double hand it. And even on the second rope, I was afraid I was going to fail it. Like, I know there's not a lot of obstacles that were like I was going to fail, but I felt like I was going to be so slow on it was a fail.
Yeah, right. But that's where the running cushion is.
That's where I need it.
And that's at the very end, right? So getting through that and then being able to finish. So that's a hell of a race, man. It must have felt good to get mixed up in something like that.
It did. And what I liked about it is we got out really hot. Yeah. And so I know the key to being successful on these things at the national series level, like beating the more, athletic people in the sport, you have to go out hot. Mm-hmm. I've never been good at that. Even when I ran in college, I was progressive running the whole way. I did not get out the first mile. I ran it smart. I ran it efficiently. And in Spartan Race, you just can't do that.
Can't do it.
No. So I was really happy that I ran the race a way I wasn't used to doing, and it worked. I was able to do it. So I learned a lot, and I got to win. So it was like, pretty rewarding. A ton of relief at the finish because I didn't even know where it was. I was on the monkey bars, which is like, I don't know, 20 feet from the finish line. And I honestly thought we had like another mile. I didn't know where I was. I was pretty out of it.
And then was the last obstacle.
And there wasn't a fire line. I'm used to seeing the fire. And I looked, and then I just saw the finish, like the finish. I was like, "Oh, it's over!" Like,
the time was really fast.
It was cooking. I think half of it is that course. If it's 13.1, is like they contoured with the course. So if you took tangents, you could
under a little bit. What did your watch say? Did you wear your watch?
I don't wear watches when I race because I don't care about time. Yeah. But I think Vince had a watch on it, and his said 12 something. So my guess is if you ran tangent lines, it was probably 12 and a half to 13, somewhere in there. Yeah. Depending on how you did like the bucket and the sandbag and things like that. They probably wheeled it with the middle of the race in line, which you should do. You should wheel the middle. Yep. But we were running pretty hard cuts. And so the other part of it was we went out so hot at the beginning that slowing down even a little bit put us in that kind of pace effort.
Because it was like 120 something?
127 something is what I ran. And Vince said our first 5K was a 17:15.
That's wild.
With the walls and like the small little hills and the ground. Like I obviously it was not a difficult opener for a Spartan. Like Seattle's pretty mild, but 17:15, like
even if you're doing like a regular half marathon,
it's pretty
fast. Yeah, totally. Nice, man. What do you got next?
That's a good question. So now I want to see how I recover from this. More than anything this year, I wanted to do an ultra because I really think I'm going to like the distance when I get in the fitness range where like 31 miles doesn't absolutely destroy me. They just look fun. But I don't think there are any ultras left except for Telluride, which is you have to qualify. So I'm not in that. And then all the other beasts are pretty far away.
Right.
So I don't know what's left. I definitely training, like huge training block. I want to get really fit. Maybe do a cross country race if I find the time to do it. But I'm really probably looking at just using this fall and winter to like get back to where I feel like I'm the fittest I've ever been, and then start, 2022 with good races, good schedules.
Yeah, something that's a little bit more, it'll be more predictable, hopefully, and like you'll be healthy and like be willing to like be ready to kind of mark some off. Oh, I meant to ask you about your shoes. We were talking about your shoes beforehand. What did you end up wearing?
Yeah, so I big risk. I wore my street racing flats with no tread, no lugs, just like bowling alley slippery. And I think I was right. Only because of the venue. Like, knowing Seattle's venue is why I think I picked them. I would never do it for a different race. Like, I wouldn't do it for West Virginia. You'd die. You'd never make it through some of the technical race. But like, when I was on the flats, or if I was on a gravel road, or even in the grass, I felt so fast.
Yeah, it probably felt
compared
awesome.
to wearing clunky soccer cleat shoes. Like, I was in racing flats, and I felt like I was in racing flats. The only time I slipped was in the rolling mud, and I took a step and they slid, and I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong. But then I just kicked holes in the mud and made like steps, and I was out. So the Olympus, if your body angle's right, is flat foot against the board. So I didn't have any slipping. The slip wall.
So you got your feet up on Olympus.
Yeah, I kept my feet up.
Oh, nice. Because it's been hard to do because the angle is a little bit more aggressive this year.
It is, but blessed with really long arms.
Nice.
So my wingspan's like 6'1", and I'm 5'10".
Were you able to go holes, or were you on
I
chain?
went holes. I just went holes feet the whole way.
Holes in your feet, and that is nice. If you're able to get that, or you have that type of mobility, like that'd be optimal. A lot of people end up having to go knees to be able to do holes, especially if it's like
the super. I did go knees.
You did.
It rained on it when it's slippery. Game changer.
Going up.
That sucked. That is a much harder obstacle when it's wet.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, you can't put your feet up at all, and when that happens, like you slip down, like you have to like use all of your strength just to hold yourself up, and trying to get through it, and then you wreck your knees. It's the worst. Yeah,
that obstacle.
Well, nice, man. So it doesn't seem like, again, anything really looming. Just training, getting healthy.
Yeah, I want to train. I want to get back in the shape where I'm doing, really good long runs, and being able to maybe rep some miles at faster paces. I want to come into the next racing season healthy and what I consider to be fit.
Yeah.
Usually the winter bogs me down and I'm not that fit, or I get hurt, like this year, and I'm just trying to be able to run. Having both would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be great. And that's goals to work toward, it's something. Well, cool, man. Well, awesome job. Congrats on it. I mean, that's as good of an outcome as we could possibly have envisioned. And it was mostly about just going out and enjoying it, which is the number one thing. So double win on that.
Thanks.
Cool, man. So I'll make sure to link to socials, even though like you might make a post sometimes.
I might make a post.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'll link to it anyway. Cool, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah. Good talking to you.